I just got three things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
Gentlemen, start your engine. This is
the engine's been started.
What's up, Brian? And hello,
Greetings,
Bob.
program.
Hey, it's Pistons and Politics. Thoughts from the intersection of motor and state, episode 12. Fresh off of Chicago, the Chicago NASCAR race, which I imagine we'll be talking quite a bit about this evening. Hello, Brian, and welcome.
Greetings, program. I miss you, Ed. You're in my heart always. Posthumous.
It's sad. He's the crazy thing is that I am up here in Williston, Vermont, which is outside of Burlington.
The illustrious Williston.
That's right. And actually, Ed is back in the lovely climes of Pacoima. But he is unavailable this evening. And perhaps we'll see. We were thinking of having a guest in, Vince Azua, who is one of our racing buddies, who is actually out in New Mexico. So we'll see if he makes it to chat today about what's going on in the world of motorsports.
Rooting for you, Vince.
What'd you say? Oh,
rooting for you. Rooting for you, Vince.
Hit that button, buddy. You can do it. We sent you a link. Let's go. All right. All right. Well, why don't we do this? The three main series. I don't know if there were sports cars this week. I was knee deep, literally, in water in Chicago. So I am unaware, except for I do know that we raced Formula One, we raced IndyCar, and then I think probably the biggest story of the week is the Chicago street race, where NASCAR raced for the first time in 75 years on a temporary street circuit in downtown Chicago in Grant Park. Brian, would you like to give us a summary of Formula One?
I'll one up you. I'll do the first two because I think that you got the majority of the NASCAR coverage on this week. So F1 was another sprint weekend, second sprint weekend of the year, and it was actually a very good sprint race on Saturday. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. It's one of the first ever good sprint races because there was variable conditions. And it started out in the variable conditions, started out in the rain, kind of similar to yesterday.
Yeah.
The race was actually quite enjoyable. It went from intermediate tires to some folks going to the dries and some folks staying on intermediates for the whole of it. Max ended up crushing it, just like we kind of expected he would. But the rest of the field, there was a lot of passing. Nico Hülkenberg was in second for like half the race before Sergio was able to get by him. Let's see.
I think I saw something.
There was a little bit of drama right off the start where Sergio and Sergio actually got a better start than Max right off the line and got ahead out of turn one and pushed Max into the grass. But I don't think that it was really intentional, and they seemed to get over it very quickly after the race. They talked like even before the interview at the podium, and they were already fine. Sergio just there was spray and it was wet, and he was coming out of two, and Max kind of darted inside when Sergio was already at half track, and because of the kind of the contour of the track, he was straight lining, and it just ended up kind of pushing Max a little bit right onto the grass. But Max got by him literally in turn two, and that was that. So there's not really that much drama. Definitely a soundbite made more of it than it was. But rest of the race was really interesting. Lots of different strategy with the changing conditions. Sunday was pretty much straightforward. Max didn't lead every lap this time because he during his pit stops, Charles was able to get ahead for like 10 laps before his pit stop. And otherwise, it was the Max show from start to finish. Everywhere else, though, there was a lot of passing, a lot of movement, a lot of drama between a lot of freight trains and
DRS
school buses. Yeah, there's some DRS train stuff going on there. So it was.
So what about the
limit?
limit?
It was still enjoyable elsewhere, and lots of track limit problems with drivers getting penalized throughout the race, and they ended up even after the race. I think there was like 7 drivers that got post-race penalties that completely shifted the outlook of the top 10.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best race ever, but not a terrible one aside from Max thinking it up like he has been all season.
Let me ask a question though. So, what is the solution to this track limits problem? And is this Austria? This is Austria.
This was Austria, and Austria has. I think I might have lost you because I just got a call that came in. Am I still with you? There we go.
Yeah.
Austria is still. Austria's had this problem every year, and there's 2 corners in particular that folks really struggle with, and I'm getting a call again. I have to cancel it. Just put me back on screen with you. Sorry. So there was Austria the last 2 years, especially there have been a lot of track limit issues where they've been a lot of drivers getting penalized for it, and there's 2 corners in particular. It's a downhill between turn 9 and turn 10 that goes onto the front straight, and because of the camber of the corners and because of the sheer speed of coming down that hill onto the front straight, it just makes the cars really want to shoot out wide on exit, and so it's very, very common for people to get laps deleted and to get penalized for that at this track in particular. Track limits is a ongoing issue across the board in Formula One. It's been an often discussed topic because the way that the tracks have evolved for safety reasons has made it more has given the drivers more ability to go off track and still maintain speed, whereas in the past there would be grass or gravel almost immediately or walls, and the drivers would be caught out, and there was a very definite penalty, self-inflicted penalty in the past for track limits, which is not so much the case anymore at a lot of different tracks. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the genesis of that issue that goes on throughout the series, and you hear a lot about
possible solutions. Like, I mean, are they thinking about doing, like raising the curbs or because right now it's a totally flat curb, right? It's like a
they have done that at certain courses, and this is what goes into the next issue of safety. Pardon me, with sausage curbing, because it seems like they can only do one or the other, where it's either flat or they have the sausage curbs, which make the cars either get damaged or launches them. Yeah, right, which is no bueno. I feel like there's got to be something in between. There are some tracks that have, like at Paul Ricard in France, where if you go off the track at all, the grading of the surface there immediately creates immense amounts of drag and slows the car down. I'm not sure why they haven't done that in other places. I don't know if it's like really expensive to maintain, or maybe it damages the cars in other ways that I'm not familiar with. And then there's obviously you can have grass or gravel right there on the edge of the track. But there's just been this kind of slow evolution of the track corners being made more flat and given more pavement for the drivers to be able to recover. And it's not just for the F1 guys; it's for all the other series, and even the rich playboys that are bringing their own track cars out to the place, and they don't want to lose their hundreds of $1,000 or multi-million-dollar cars because they dip a tire and it goes into the grass or the gravel, and it causes thousands of dollars of damage.
I wonder if you could do something. I mean, it seems like with paint. Did you? I remember out in Sonoma. After Sonoma, I was listening to Denny Hamlin talk about. And I think I might have sent you this cut where Denny Hamlin was talking about why it was so hard to pass there. And one of the reasons was they had just repainted some of the sections, and then they were just like at the go-kart track, right? They would early on they bash back the movable barriers.
They move it, yeah, right.
And then they were like late apexing and using the traction of the paint, because you would think the paint would be less traction, but I guess in this case they were getting more. So they're getting such a drive off of the corner that it eliminated what were usually passing zones, because everybody could get off the corner so well. But I wonder if you could do something like the opposite. If you could do something where it's like so like I said, there's some tracks that have some outer.
There's some tracks that have actually they put in like AstroTurf, which makes it so that there's like no traction there at all. It makes it like immediately spin up. But the problem with that is with the amount of grip that these tires are producing, it rips up the AstroTurf almost immediately. So you would need to have some super mega industrial grade AstroTurf that won't come up with these cars that have thousands of pounds of downforce pressing down on the tires, and these super ultra grippy tires that they rip it up. That has worked, but it only works for like the first 10 laps of the race before it starts getting ripped up, seemingly. So I'm not sure what there's a solution, but we haven't quite figured it out yet. I mean, the solution is you penalize the shit out of the drivers and they stop doing it. But they still do it. Yeah.
I mean,
the solution is risk acceptance.
And then Max is so far ahead, he doesn't even have to push it. So it's like he doesn't get any penalties, and it just kills everybody even more.
Yeah, right. The solution is outside of something that we haven't figured out yet. The solution is risk acceptance and making the track just a teensy bit more dangerous, insofar as either putting grass right there or putting gravel, and giving them a real cost to risk benefit analysis there that they have to go through.
Now, speaking of which, this is an excellent transition into the IndyCar race, because the IndyCar race also had issues with off-track. Pagenaud was very critical, and I'll let you talk about that as well. He had a huge incident and was just like, this is an insane corner, the way this is, basically a cliff into a sand trap. But go ahead, Brian. I want to steal your thunder.
No, not at all. That's all right. Yeah, I think there's been 2 times that I can think of precisely. It's probably happened other times as well, but in this corner in particular, where there's been some insane, catastrophic kind of incident. There's Michael Andretti back in, I think it was 96 or something like that. They went off in a similar way that was, could have been a death. And in other circumstances, without the safety innovations that we have now, Simon could have died in that wreck today on Saturday. For those who didn't see, there's a massive incident coming down a hill. Mid-Ohio is very famous for its elevation change and for it to be a kind of unforgiving track. A lot of gravel traps and a lot of spots where if you go off course, it's not going to turn out well for you. And this in particular, he had brake failure, I believe, that speared him off, and it was just a horrific, evil-looking incident where the car, I think, barrel rolled, 10 times or something insane, before he ended up still hitting the wall after losing a bunch of speed. Thankfully, losing a bunch of speed through the gravel trap, but as he's doing it, the car's just getting ripped to shreds, and his head is moving around, and it was rough.
I mean, it really worked the way it's designed to work. I think, I mean,
Yeah.
even though it looked crazy, right? It's
Yeah.
better for it to be tumbling and losing all that energy than just flying.
Definitely than just hitting something straight off, which is, yeah, thankfully, I know Simon was outspoken about it, but at the same time, Mid Ohio, there's a couple of really heritage laden tracks in America that really use elevation and natural contours of the geography in an interesting way that you don't see in a lot of the rest of the world, or at least not in the top class racing. A lot of that has been, a lot of those courses have been made by hand, or have been designed on big, large, flat plots of land anymore. So these tracks like Road America and Mid Ohio and Road Atlanta, even Coda a little bit with some of its elevation.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about the unique heritage behind that kind of track, and whether we keep racing on it. Again, it's racing, so there's some risk acceptance here. It's not just are we just going to the easy, fun, flat places? Maybe, but we start getting away a little bit from what racing is. And while granted, we don't ever want to see people getting hurt or deaths, like I know to a man, every person that I've ever raced with and everyone that all the other drivers out there, at the risk of being trite, we want to have these tracks because they're special.
Well, you don't want to neuter everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, otherwise it's not, what are we doing a little bit? In that same vein, before we get too far off track, with it, it's not one of the major series, but there was an incident at Spa as well this weekend,
Yes.
where another young a baby, a young formula driver was killed. This time not in the same place as we would think, though. Not in Eau Rouge, it was actually down, I believe it was down the Kemmel Strait afterwards.
It wasn't up the hill. I thought it was up the hill. It's top
Or
of the hill.
it might, maybe it was in Radion, immediately following Eau Rouge. I read that it was not in Eau Rouge, because that is normally where the nasty wrecks happen, and the very dangerous wrecks happen at Eau Rouge. But I read that it was somewhere else. So it potentially just dumb luck that it happened to be in the same place. I did not see footage of it. I didn't go looking for it. Sad enough as it was. But yeah, racing is dangerous, and there's you had an incident in December that you busted up some of your ribs, and still feeling it, I think, today, right?
Yep. Well, maybe not today, but it was what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I had maybe it was the final reset of my rib. I don't know. It was
Right.
crazy.
It's been 6 months either way. I mean,
either way, it was very tender for a few days. It was crazy. So yeah, no,
I remember when Justin Wilson passed away at Pocono, back in, I think it was 2014, 2015, something like that. And I remember at the time making a post on Facebook, and I don't normally post on anything much anymore, but I remember back then I made a post, and it, seeing, I knew exactly what happened when I saw it happen. I knew he was dead, that instant. It made me, that and other incidents, it makes you really consider, the things that we enjoy, what they're worth. Because is anything worth that? I don't know what the right answer is. And it's kind of it's kind of one of those things where like until it happens to you, you just keep going. But
well, you know what, man? I tell you what, I think about that. I think about that statistically. That's how. It's just I just think about it statistically. Like the most dangerous thing that I do is drive to 7-Eleven.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
that is the highest risk thing when I'm going across. Whatever, I'm going to the Smartin final.
Yeah, right.
Like that, my chances of getting nailed by some idiot pretty high, comparatively, right? So I do think about that. But yeah, I've had a couple of pretty good ones. I had one really good one at Cal Speed where I submarined a tire barrier, and that's probably even though I wasn't hurt, that was probably my scariest wreck that I've ever been in. And
Sure.
yeah, certainly makes you think, for sure. So what happened in the actual race? Just quickly, as far as I think we were joking about that earlier today.
Yeah. I was going to say for a second, we didn't get to talk about the race yet, but that submarining a barrier would have been a good segue into the NASCAR discussion. But
I'll put it in my hip pocket.
Yeah, right. No, so the race, another great race. Palou is just absolutely killing it. Dude is absolutely untouchable right now. Just firing on all cylinders. I mean, I don't know if Ganassi's figured out something because they were 1-2 and they had besides the incident right at the beginning with Ericsson going for a flight over Rosenquist, taking out the 2 Swedes.
I know. He posted an apology to him on I don't know if it was on Twitter. He was like, dude, I'm so sorry. That was a bad mistake.
Yep. Just oversteer, cold tires, just a start of the race incident kind of thing. Happens sometimes, even to the best of them. But yeah, other than that, the Ganassi guys were all in the top 10. It was a 1-2 with Palou and Dixon. I think we both picked Pato. And I told you I can't remember if the race had started yet, but I was like, man, if Pato could win this, maybe just because anybody can out there right now, but he's going to have to beat Palou to do it. And it's unreal. He's just, like I said, I don't know if Ganassi's figured something out in particular or if he's just in the absolute prime of his existence right now because he's killing it. Really good, a lot of movement up and down the track otherwise with a lot of the competition. Lundgaard say again?
What happened to Herta? Because he was on the pole, wasn't he again?
He was, and he was running up front. I think he ended up in the top 5, if I remember right, but I was multitasking when I was watching the race last night, and I wasn't watching it as close as I normally do, so I couldn't tell you. But he was never really, I don't think he was like super in the running outside of the first stint. I might be wrong. But it was the coverage kind of made it into the Graham Rahal show a little bit for a while because he actually qualified second, which was by far like his best start, his best run in a long time. And I think he ended up something like 8th or 7th perhaps, but decent run for him overall, considering how absolute crap he and the RLL team have been for a long time. Lundgaard was up there. Will Power, I think, snuck a podium out of nowhere.
And I saw that Connor Daly stepped in for Pagenaud in that car, and he came 20th. But the thing was, he started 27th, and the interesting, he in his post about it, he just said like, it took him a minute because of course it's a different car, it's different team,
different everything, right? Yeah.
Right. But once he got to grips with it, he went forward. He felt like he had some really good pace in the car, and that's interesting to me because you see somebody struggle really badly, with a particular team, and he lost his seat, lost his ride. He was in a different car, which has not been a great car all year, but he was, he actually had some pace in it. So it's always fascinating how drivers interact with, different setups and different teams and just what can click,
Yeah, absolutely. And other than that, the race was good. Another good Indy race, with lots of aside from Pelot stinking it up like Max is, everyone else behind is jockeying for position every lap. So still good racing overall. But yeah, take that out of your pocket now with the
submarining the barriers. All right. So,
all right, it's your turn.
that makes me think about Chicago. So I was fortunate enough to get out to Chicago. I just felt like it was going to be history, and I wanted to be there. I haven't had a summer vacation in almost 20 years, but I figured out a way to do it. And so on the way out here to Vermont to see my family, got to stop in Chicago with a great friend of mine, Eric Brewer. He and his wife put me up, and Eric went with me to the races for Saturday and Sunday. Of course, online has been full of anti-woke NASCAR vitriol for the past year since this thing was announced. NASCAR, has, as mentioned at the beginning, they have never raced on a street course. So they never raced on a temporary street course in their history before. So this is the first time. They're going into an urban center, which of course many people are afraid of that live in Tennessee somewhere. They're like very scared about it, and they have to write a lot of what they think are funny jokes about gunshots, and I don't know, it's crazy. But it was unending. So I have to say, we'll go into the details, but it's super validating that that the race turned out well. And not only did it turn out well, but even though it was delayed, weather delayed, it pulled a huge rating, which I know you're going to want to say something about later, Brian. But they pulled it was the largest audience that they've had in over 6 years on NBC, and this is people were interested. Then that's the point. That's what NASCAR wants, right? They want to create interest in new fans, new people, and they want to move the sport forward. And one of the things I was thinking about the whole thing, the new car is part of this like evolution. The new venues is part of this evolution. The new tire, which was a huge part of the weekend, the fact that they have a fantastic rain tire. The rain tire performed, I think, amazingly well. And so that was a huge thing. In the past, they could never run that, run what they did this weekend.
Sure.
They were able to do so. And I think the drivers really, really enjoy that tire. That tire is doing very, very well for them. So I'll start with Saturday. We got out there Saturday, and it started off, we were coming down from the Green Line in Chicago, rode the train for about a half hour down, and we're walking towards the track, and you're walking in between these huge buildings, and the sound of the cars is just coming towards you. It's the coolest thing. It's something I love about Long Beach as well, when you get into town and you can hear the engines going, so that was going on, and people are all gathered, looking through the fences and trying to catch a glimpse of everything that was going on. We got down there, we got to watch practice, which went well. I mean, the track is narrow, but it raced really well. So there was a big spread initially, but then it all tightened up. They had the practice went off very well, and then they immediately qualify. Xfinity, that's tough, man. They've never been on the track. They get out there for, I think they had a 40-minute practice. So they do like a 40-minute practice, and then they shut it down, go in, throw some tires on it, and you're qualifying. So that's, I can't hear you. I think, you're muted.
Sorry, that was me. It's like karting almost.
It is like karting. And so but I think everyone was so nervous, right? And I mean, myself too. It was like, how is this track going to race? Is it going to be Mickey Mouse? Is it going to be terrible? It's really narrow in places. But it was racing well. So we had that. They had like a musical act that went on in the park. Then the NASCAR Cup cars got out there. They did a 50-minute practice. Same thing. In the end of the practice, they were about 2 seconds quicker, maybe close to 3 seconds quicker than the Xfinity cars.
Interesting.
And the thing but at first they were slower. So it was like, ooh, how's that going to go? But then over the practice, of course, everybody got quicker and quicker and quicker. And it was one of the things, and the most surprising thing, I don't know if it was surprising because we had talked about it and you had certainly called it. But to see, and I'm going to murder his name. So
SVG.
Okay.
Shane Van Gisbergen.
Shane Van Gisbergen led the practice. Now he didn't lead the whole practice, but at the end he nipped Denny Hamlin, and he led the practice. So this man is a supercar champion from down under. The one thing I will say is that he has a lot of experience running street courses and doing this. And he is one of the best in the world at it. So, they talked to Kyle Larson, and it's a great interview with him about like, well, how do you feel? Because I'll give it away, but he ends up winning the race. But the thing is that sorry. But the thing is, what they said, what he said is, does this embarrass you? And he's like, absolutely not. Like, we've never ever done. None of us have done this. And so, and he had to work for that. He had to work for what he did. So he leads the practice. I'm shocked. I'm texting Brian, and I'm excited. I'm like, Brian, he's leading practice, and he did. He led practice. In the end, that they went quiet. They went quiet for 10 minutes, and then they go and qualify. And he ends up qualifying third. Denny Hamlin takes pole. I'm trying to remember who else was up there. Oh, and Jenson Button ends up, 8th, which is a great result for him.
Especially in that car, because that car is not really a very good car.
Yeah, it's not that great of a car, not like the Stackhouse car, but it was exciting. The other thing that was exciting, I haven't been to the new format of qualifying, and I think the format works really well. So what they do is they split the field into 2 groups. They run, and then they take the top 5 from each group into the top 10, and then they run. And
it's just like the IndyCar knockout qualifying.
Yeah. And the thing that was really cool about it was that they were like waiting, right? They're waiting. Like SVG waited, right? And he didn't go out until he had, he put down, I think, 2 laps. And one of the really interesting things that happened was Chase Elliott, SVG gets out there to run. Chase Elliott slows down. It's like Formula One, man.
Oh yeah, he's following him. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so he slows down to let him go in front because he's like, I need to know what's going on. I'm a second and a half off. Like, what is happening? And so he goes to follow him, and there's like an actual like S, and he's trying to follow him, and he wrecks it. He ruined the car. He clipped the right side of the car on the wall that kicked him into the left.
They kicked him to the left, right
there, and he hit hard. So that was a red flag, and then and then Shane had, when they went back green, I think he had 2 laps, so he ends up third. But it was really exciting and cool. Then like the black and in between there, the Black Crowes played. So they had the Black Crowes there.
That's cool.
It was a cool concert. It was short, but it was cool. We rode the Ferris wheel in the middle of
in the thunders and the lightning. Yeah.
Well,
good plan.
So there's a Ferris wheel there included in your ticket, by the way. So you ride the Ferris wheel. So we got back on a second time during the race, and this gets into what happened at the end of Saturday. So the Xfinity race is going. Someone blew an engine. It was actually it was Marks. It was the owner for and who had done very
Trackhouse.
well. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he had done extremely well. So he blows a motor, and that took like, I don't know, 10 laps to clear up the oil and everything.
Yeah.
It got going green, and then there was a lightning. They stopped us, stopped everything with the lightning, and we happened to be, Eric and I, at the top of a large metal Ferris wheel when they
In a
said,
field.
Yeah,
Nothing
they
else around here.
nothing right. And they were like, they said, and this is the announcement, man. They were like, we're stopping due to lightning. Enact your personal safety plan, was what they said. I'm like, what personal? We're supposed to have a personal safety plan? Like, what are we talking about? And our personal safety plan was to be in the top of a metal structure in the middle of an empty field.
Right. Spread legs, head down, kiss.
Yeah. So they shut it down, and then long story short, on that day they never started it back up because Chicago has a very strict lightning rule, which is actually much longer than NASCAR's rule. So there's no way that they could run the race and have it keep going. And they also canceled They canceled the chain smokers that night, which was unfortunate. All right. Skip to Sunday. We wake up and they tell us they're not opening the park because of rain. They say that the rain is going to stop at 11. And it looks like it on the radar. And this is what's crazy, Brian. It's like a normal band of rain on the radar, and like it would normally just kind of work through like that, right? So they said 11. And then they said 1. They ended up saying 3, 4, 5, 7:30. And it was supposed to be light rain. What happened was, and it's the weirdest thing, it went from this normal kind of pattern. It actually turned into a circle pattern right over Chicago, and it dumped so much rain. It poured and poured and poured, man.
I saw pictures. The tires were like up to the rim in some places.
I mean, there was places where people were like probably 8 inches up on their, walking through water.
Yeah.
And so I actually thought we were down there, we were trying to make the best of it, and we were soaked. And we got so wet, honestly, and so tired that my friend and I feel so bad for Eric. This is the first time he's ever been to a race. We're in a downpour, so we were like, we're gonna leave. We're gonna go get some pizza, go get some Chicago deep dish pizza. So we walk to that, get in there, and there's flood warnings going. They're saying you have to get out of, don't travel. I mean, your phone.
We're all gonna die.
Dude, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And I'm like, this is over. We actually stood up to leave, and the guy goes, hold on a second. And he turned on the television. And we look at the television, we watched the coverage for a while, and they showed some radar that said it was going to be going, and they were calling the drivers to the cars. So we go, okay. So we go back into the park. You would not believe, Brian, the amount of people that came out of all the hotels and all the restaurants and
just out of the woodwork.
It was
awesome.
It was like it was like I don't know, ants, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just swarmed down into the park and filled that thing in like 30 minutes.
That's great.
I think
awesome.
On television it was packed out, and we were able to actually get to a really interesting spot on the front straight, right in front of all the pits, like a general admission spot. And so we were there for like 4 laps before they kicked us out because nobody was there, right?
Yeah.
So I pulled a Brian Armbrust, and I was like, dude, let's
go. That's where you go.
Let's go. And so we're just like there, like looking at the, through the fence, and Denny took the green and just, flashed by, and the racing was on, right? So the race itself was really dynamic. They ended up shortening it by 25 laps because of darkness. And the end of the race was so dramatic because of the darkness. The Chicago lights, these very special, like old-fashioned, like early 1900s
gas lamp district kind of things. Yeah, I saw them.
They look like that. And so those things lit up. It's dusk, like the sky is purple. I mean, it was so dramatic.
It's
And
much darker in person than it is on coverage. That's the case with all kinds of night racing. It's always much darker in person than it is on
yeah,
TV.
yeah. Vance Hambergen goes through.
Yeah.
He restarted the race, and one of the things that I'll tell about my criticisms in a minute, but he started 18th, restarted 18th on the last section, and he made it from 18th to first in the last 25 laps. There was a yellow, but they had to go to overtime, and the race for the win was just awesome. I mean, he was on much newer tires than everybody else.
He was then the top two. Everyone else was on the same tires as Shane.
Well, and the other guys that kind of had him, that were with him or had him covered for a lot of the race, they wrecked trying to get through the field. So the 20 and the 45 were definitely on pace with him, but they both wrecked trying to get back through, and he did not. So
well, and they wrecked completely by themselves too. They weren't. They didn't get wrecked by anybody. They overcooked it, and I think it was the same corner for each of them. There's a lot of people in that singular corner that got caught out.
Yeah, I think turn 6, and then and it was just wild. Just the visuals were amazing, man. So when they hit these barriers, they're full of water, and it's like a fireworks show.
Yeah,
it go in, but it worked. It really did. And like Kyle Busch, when he had his problem very early on. They pull him out of he was up to the windshield in tires. They pull him out, and
the car looked perfect.
Yeah,
it was unreal.
Car was perfect. He comes out and goes 5th.
Yeah, the cars are built like tanks. It would seem, because I think there was probably 6 or 7 cars that went into the tire barriers that came out completely fine.
Right, they came out completely. Yeah. And so, and I wonder how much. Well, anyway, so and they got things cleared very quickly. I thought that was really surprising.
Yeah, the cautions were not too long, thankfully.
Yeah, cautions weren't bad. The racing was great, and now it turns out the TV ratings were great. One of the things when we left, one of the things that really impressed me was that the place cleared out. It was incredibly beautiful, man. Have you ever been to Chicago?
I've only flown through it, yeah.
Okay, so Grant Park has that famous fountain.
Yeah.
From, and the fountain is lit up. All the skyline was lit up, and the buildings were red, white, and blue, like, and special for the day.
Yeah, right.
And everything, and it was so gorgeous. You can check my Facebook if you want to see a few of those pictures. But it was truly stunning. And then when you leave, everybody gets on the trains and they go into the restaurants and they go, or they go into the hotel and they go.
There's not a traffic jam.
No traffic jam, no 2-hour wait to get out of there. And all of that makes so much sense to me, Sure. So that was cool. So yeah, I had an amazing time. Although I really, really thought I was right on the edge of thinking it was probably one of the worst times ever. At about 4:00 in the afternoon.
And flipped the bitch and everything turned out all right.
By 8, it was one of the best experiences I've had ever. I think partially because it was so tough, right? And
sure.
Then
that makes up for it. Like, yeah, absolutely. There's the adversity that was overcome, kind of, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were feeling. Also, there was like 80% new people. And listening to the buzz, people, like, I was with the start, I had all new people around me, and they literally were like, this is, I'm not kidding. These dudes were like, they had a beer or 3, but they're sitting there, the whole field goes by, and they look at me, and they're like, dude, I am totally a NASCAR fan. Like this, because they've never been around these cars. I mean, they're super impressive, the way they sound and everything.
Yeah.
So, some criticisms.
Sure.
Constructive criticisms about it that maybe folks might be interested in. We paid $269 or $279 for a general admission to go there, and the way that I justified that or felt that was a good deal, which I think is true, was that we were going to see 4 bands, 2 of which I was extremely interested in seeing. I got 4 concerts and 2 days of racing, for 200 and essentially $250. And I felt like that was worth it. Well, we didn't get the concerts.
Yeah.
So, there's that. The other thing was they had like general admission plus areas. And I think that's garbage. I don't mind if you have buildings or amenities that you can upgrade to, like, let's say, because they have those in those areas, like where it's air conditioned and, you can sit down in your bathroom, that kind of thing.
That's what the plus meant, was it was okay.
But also is the best corner in the whole thing. So you didn't get, we could only look at corner entry with the regular, but the plus, you were in the middle of the best corner in the track, like the most dynamic spot. And for me, that's garbage. I think that if you pay $270 for a general admission bracelet, you should be able to walk the track.
Out of curiosity, what was the cost of the plus?
I think it was another $50.
Okay.
And but it's, I would just expect to be able to. I mean, I'm walking anyway. I'm carrying my own chair. Like, we're not. You know what I mean? We're not going into any seat anywhere. So, so the thing for me was, we were cut off from some parts of the track that I really felt like we should have been able to go to. The other thing was, shoot, I have my little note. Well, that was a big one. And then the race itself. They shortened the race and they did it in a very weird spot in the pit cycle. And
that was
it really flipped everything, and they didn't give any notice. And so that was tough. And then the third thing, which is related in a way, was that their communication to all of us was very late and very slow. Like, we found out on social media like 9:15 in the morning that the 9 o'clock gates open wasn't happening.
Sure.
And they never said when the gates were opening, ever.
Yeah. Right.
And when they put the lightning out, or when they put the rain delays on, or when there was no communication, and they were saying, look at our social media for the communication, but it was very late. It was, and I know they're scrambling, but at least you want to touch people, right? And say,
yep,
there's a 30-minute more. We will tell you at 10 whether we're going again. Do you know what I mean? And then just keep talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were left in the complete dark, and I almost literally, we were standing up in the restaurant to go on the green and leave.
Yeah.
The entire thing, when we found out that, it was going to go. And we find out from NASCAR. We found out from NBC.
Yeah, right.
And I'm so that was not good. So I would say that wasn't great.
I have some thoughts on those criticisms, and not to contend with your criticisms, but to kind of contextualize in relation to other series a little bit. So so thinking about the general admission ticket price and what you get for it, definitely more expensive than what you see for Indy and IMSA. However, you don't get 4 concerts out of the deal, and it's not in Chicago at these other races. So that's not totally crazy, I don't think. There is an association with the general admission tickets at Indy and IMSA. You can have paddock passes, which are an extra $25 or $50, depending on if you're buying it for the whole weekend or not, that kind of thing. Don't know if that existed for you guys.
No chance at paddock. Although if you were there, Brian, we would have
figured it out.
I have absolutely no doubt we would have made it into that area.
Yeah. So I don't the Paddock Plus, or sorry, the General Mission Plus thing. I was kind of equating it to the Paddock extra cost for the Paddock passes, but if you're just paying for nicer bathrooms and some access to different corners, like, yeah, it's kind of lame. I get it, but also it's kind of.
I mean, they just could have done. They could have done the exact same thing. To my mind, do the exact same thing. Just let people with a GA go throughout and keep those amenities to the plus people. But what was I going to mention? Shoot. Well, it was also very cool. Like on the front straight, it was like Formula One, man. They had built like a club full on, almost like a permanent thing for
right.
For those VIPs, right? And then
sure.
The stands, everything looked like
primo,
really primo, and that was excellent. Not that we were in them, but it was.
Yeah.
It was and here's the funny thing. This is how we ended up doing it. And the first day we discovered that the band stand, which is huge, has two huge televisions. I mean, the largest.
Saw that, yeah, all right.
And so what we ended up doing was we brought our own chairs. We camped out, it's kind of a bowl there. And so at the ridge of the bowl, we just camped out in our thing. I had my cell phone with my in-car cam in front of me, the largest television in the world, like that I could watch the entire race on. And then, we had the porta potties right there. And then maybe 150 feet away was one of the most dynamic parts of the track where, you had them coming out of a corner to a high speed straight and then hard on the brakes to a really severe 90. So you could watch through there. And so on restarts or when things were happening that I cared about, I would just run over. Right.
Yeah. Right. That's cool.
So that turned out really, really, really well. So anyway, to wrap it up, it was, I know we got 8 minutes.
Hi.
8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, I just felt like it was a huge success, and I'm so glad to see the TV stuff. And you sent me some comments and things that are people saying on Reddit, and I'm seeing a ton of that online as well, Facebook, Instagram, people commenting and just saying, I've always written off NASCAR. I've never cared, but the cars were they were, a lot of the places they seem planted, and so they're not that exciting to watch. This new car, I think,
not on TV, man.
But I was saying on this one, no. What I'm saying is like that's how it looks often like on the ovals and so on.
Oh, sure.
On this track, because of the conditions and because of the track itself, the cars were they were really dynamic. And then watching SVG, watching SVG's feet.
Yeah.
It was whoever decided to put that camera in there, that was brilliant for me. Yep. Because to see him heel and towing, which makes a huge difference on your ability to brake when you're matching revs and you're not forcing that engine to work, right? When it's and the synchros are lurching the car.
Yeah. It's so much smoother.
Yeah.
And that's where he was killing everybody in particular. You could see it on the broadcasts, on the braking, and where it's funny because you're right. Everyone on track was looking like a squirrel. There's just batshit coming out of every corner, and he didn't. He's the only one that didn't. He had forward traction because the car was planted, and he knew where he was going with it.
Did you see Larson's interview where they were asking him where he talked about the heel and towing and stuff?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, so he said, I went to Bob Bondurant where they make you do that, and he was like,
yeah.
He goes, I'm terrible at it. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, and he said he watched him doing it, and he was like, oh my God, I can't even think about it. He was super humble, and he was also saying that when SVG went by him, they ran together for a while, and he said I put together like 4 or 5 corners, and I'm like, that was great. He's thinking like
Right.
that's. He looked behind him, and like he's still right there. So who knows? You know what it's going to sponsor. This is the thing that's awesome about it. He comes over and he does so well, and it just pushes everybody else in the series to get better.
It does. After you got to go back and watch the broadcast when you get a chance. Okay. After the race was over, they asked him if he was going to come over to NASCAR now, and he said he has one more year with Aussie, with his team in the Aussie V8s, and he might be here. So,
and I think to be fair, there'll be a learning curve on the other.
Oh, for the ovals will be, he'll get his ass kicked on the ovals for sure, because everyone does. But on the road courses, he's one of the best in the world right now anyway. But anyone that was familiar with him and the Aussie V8 Supercar Series was pleasantly surprised, but not surprised, I think, by this, because if anybody's had the time to be able to watch him and the stuff that he's done in and amongst the series of a bunch of other guys that are doing the same thing, like he makes everyone else look much more human. So he's really skilled, and these cars now are based, when they did the redesign of this generation, they were looking at the Aussie V8s as kind of a template. So these the car was directly translatable for him, and as a whole for the series, the cars race better, they look better, they sound better, and if you get a chance to watch some more Aussie V8s, you'll see why, because that series is fantastic.
Yeah, I've watched some of it, and I think like this thing with the heel and towing and the matching of the revs and all the stuff that he was doing, I literally think that was probably the difference, because the 45 and the 20 were on pace with him, but it's when you're smooth, when you can be smoother like that, right, in the braking zone, and the braking zones is where the 20 and the 45 lost it and made mistakes and ended up in the barriers and ruined their races. But they, so.
I'll tell you what, watching the broadcast again, you get to see they too were squirrely, moving around, sliding and everything, and they were still that fast. So those cars had a lot more speed in them. If they had been doing the same thing that he had been doing, like that Trackhouse car is very good, but like those cars are clearly some of the best in the series. The Gibbs cars and the Gibbs affiliated cars at the road courses right now are tops. And so they, I think that if SVG had been in a Gibbs car this weekend, it would have been like, night, everybody.
Well, I'm curious. We're right on the 11 o'clock hour, which because of where I am, we're gonna wrap up. But I'm excited for someone who's a big fan of NASCAR. I'm excited to see how this translates into Atlanta ratings. I'm excited to see what people think of Atlanta when they watch it, because it is a hybrid, odd. It's extremely intense race, and I'm curious, right? I'm curious if this keeps building in momentum, and I'm just so happy that the naysayers, even though the rain was awful, the weather was awful, there were so many things thrown at this thing. The fact that it was a success, that they set, history, made history, that they created a great story, that Chicago was a wonderful setting. I mean, the visuals are so incredible when they're racing. The drivers were happy to be in like a nice restaurant, an hour go down, instead of being, making themselves oatmeal, instant oatmeal,
an hour away from whatever major city right. Yeah.
RV, right? They got to do that stuff. I don't know. I'm pretty happy about it. And, change can be good, man.
As a true elitist, I can see where you stand now. No, I'd like to think I think that the numbers are really interesting to see that jump, and the comment that I wanted to plug to that was I think that this was a good coming out party for NASCAR, not just with bringing SVG in, but as a and it's it's really interesting because they've raced at Chicago since 2002 or 2001, I think it was. Not in Chicago, but it's funny to see all of the hubbub that's the negative vitriol, like you said. The race itself was very solid. Wasn't the best race of all time, but it was a good race. I think there's a lot of people that are out there still with this was a shit show, and I think that that's sour grapes because it really wasn't. It was a good race. And there's again, if anyone's familiar with Aussie V8s, watching street racing with those kinds of cars is fantastic. It's just great. The car, like you said, the cars are moving. It's not just cars going in circles. It's not where like you said, they look completely planted, and to the casual viewer, they're looking at that and they're just like, I can do that, which is hilarious. But when you don't know what goes into it, and when the series is so bad at communicating what goes into it, this was a really great way to illustrate, like, these guys are fighting for their lives out there in order to, much less to be successful and win, but just to get the damn thing around the track is already a fight to the death. So I think this was a really good display of that. It really helped having the conditions and everything kind of got amped up. I agree with you on the criticisms. We can talk about that more later. I know we're on a time crunch, but like you said, I think everyone was on a scramble, and because this was the first time at this track, that part of it was a bit of a shit show, and there's just things to be learned from that, and that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Now, you did have one thing to say, and I do want you to get the chance to say it. I think you said, I don't know what you were going to say, but you said something about the streaming, about the fact that they actually streamed it onto Peacock.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this was the first or maybe second NASCAR race that I've been able to stream on Peacock the same day as the race. I don't think that the NBC has made that available before. I'm not even sure if next week will be available or if this was just special for Chicago. Yeah. But for somebody like myself who hasn't watched NASCAR purposefully, I tuned in. I watched it because I knew it was going to be an interesting race. I was invested because SVG was coming over, but I also knew that the cars on a street course were going to be interesting. And I think that this was a really good way of showing, again, to the casual viewer or to the more involved viewer, like what it is that these guys are doing, because it's not just point and click, left, left, left.
And they did so much. I mean, honestly, I didn't know. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
I think throughout the field, nobody embarrassed. It was not like an embarrassing display of a lack of ability. Like they were running in the rain on rain tires on a thing they had run for 50 minutes. Like,
they were working for it, man.
And it was like they really showed up and showed out, and they were racing towards the end. I mean, Bubba made a bad mistake at the end.
Bubba embarrassed himself a little bit.
Yeah, but I think he got into the left side where he went offline.
He got into the wet. He did.
It was just a dumb mistake, but again, this is something he needs to get over. One last thing I'll mention on my end. So Bubba had a block party in the south side of Chicago. It had a huge turnout, tons of people. He posted after the race, even though he sucked at the race and was upset with his result, that the love he got in Chicago was huge. And, there was no violence, there were no problems. And the thing is that there were a lot of people opposed to this race from the activist community of Chicago. But in the end, there was a friend, my people I stayed with. They follow some activists there that are concerned with what's happening in the South Side of Chicago.
Sure.
And there was one man in particular, and I wish I could remember his name, but he came back, and he's a prominent person. He came back and he said, you all don't have a problem with Lollapalooza coming in for 4 days, right? But you have a problem with NASCAR because of what you think of NASCAR. But he was like, did Lollapalooza invest money into the South Side, and hire local businesses to put up the event that they did? So what
Sure.
he thought was that NASCAR invested money in the South Side of Chicago. They didn't just invest money where they were, right?
Yeah. Wow.
They did outreach, right?
Yeah.
Into these communities and neighborhoods, and had a direct benefit on the private business, on the businesses that are there, the people that are making food there, the people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's great.
So I think that's also like extremely positive. Of course, want Bubba to do better. I was proud of him for qualifying 14th. He was 2/10 off the 45, man.
Yeah, it's decent. It's good.
That's pretty good, but to do that for 75 laps is a whole different wax, right? All right, so we'll end there. Thank you so much. Great conversation, Brian. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Well, I'll get to tell you about my supercar experience next week.
Yes. Wait, tell the people what you're doing.
Oh, I was in Las Vegas last week. Yeah. And
you did it.
Yep. Did a baby in miniature rental track day in a Porsche Cayman GT4. So more next week on that.
Next week. Yeah, I want to hear about it. We'll start with that.
Right on.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot. Have a great night.
Much love.
Peace. All right.
Peace.
Take care. Bye.
See ya.